the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
See a scenario where a 10-2 SEC team misses out on the playoff this year. So if you get to 10, it's the march to 10, I think, for the Vols, and I think you're in. Final thing here. Ryan, this weekend, Tennessee baseball, run ruled Bowling Green, all 3 games. We get 3 different pitchers. No AJ Russell, who they're being extra cautious with. The biggest standouts to you, though, from the weekend that was, as the Tennessee Volunteers continue on their long win streak here out of the gate.
2 guys, one on the mound and one behind the plate. But AJ Causey, I mean, he's one of the guys that I thought was, sneakily an option for the third starting spot, and he was really good in his first opportunity. I mean, really dominant, and 7 innings, walks 1, gives up a solo homer. I think strikes out like 8, does it on like 78 pitches. Just incredibly efficient, especially when you talk about those high strikeout numbers. So he, again, it's just Bowling Green. It's just one start, but he couldn't have been any better. And now in 2 of 3 appearances this year, he's been really good. And one of those other appearances was a long relief outing against Texas Tech, who's, at least one of the 2 best teams you've played to this point in the season. So Causey won, and then Cannon Peebles. And I wasn't really worried about Cannon Peebles just because we already had a long track record of him last year as a true freshman at North Carolina State, being really productive with his bat. But he'd gotten off to a slow start to the season at the plate. Fantastic this weekend, 5 of 7 at the plate, added a walk. He didn't start on Friday. Cal State got to start behind the plate. But going back to the High Point game in the midweek, that's last 3 games that Peebles has played in, multiple hits in all 3 games. Feels like he's kind of relaxing, calming into things, and getting into a groove, and is looking like the really solid bat in Tennessee's lineup that we thought he was going to be.
I also just kind of love the option still. Like, it seems like AJ Russell obviously taking the time off on Friday night. So you get some AJ Causey, as you just alluded to, who looked great. And he's gotten a lot of work out of the gate. He has experience. I believe he was the Friday night guy for Jacksonville State last year. So you have that in your back pocket. No Xander today. Xander was not the starter for the first Sunday of the season, but get some work either way. And then you get to see different guys. Like, it could still be Nate Snead. You can't count him out in this role. But Derek Schaefer, another freshman, he looks solid. I mean, do you think this continues where they just keep mixing and matching these guys, and kind of it might be a blessing in disguise that AJ is out for a little bit to be careful and just to see what some of these guys look like in these Friday and Sunday roles?
Yeah, I mean, it's a thin line there. I think if AJ is back and pitching at Alabama in 2 weeks, I think it's going to be a good thing for Tennessee.
Oh,
He looks good.
Before that, I'm just talking about before SEC play.
Yeah. No, I definitely think so, because it gives you another spot to tinker with. And again, that's been I think I've said it on here, one of the questions with AJ is he threw 30 innings last year, and now he's stepping into being an ace in the SEC. That's a big change in workload. So just to lessen that, I think would be a big win for Tennessee. So yeah, Kansas State on Tuesday night's really interesting. I would think Nate Snead starts. He didn't throw at all this weekend. At the bare minimum, he's going to throw a ton in that game. I think it would make a lot of sense for him to start, especially since they did end up using Xander today out of the bullpen. I don't really even know who their other option would be to use in that game. So I think it does work out well just to give a bunch of guys opportunities, because there's not a ton of obvious candidates. And I think some of those guys they think play better out of the bullpen, and it gives them some good options there. And it doesn't feel, at this point, to me, it doesn't feel like either freshmen are ready to be starting an SEC play. Doesn't mean they can't be ready in 2 months when you're starting to roll in the postseason and the games really, really pick up. But yeah, I think it's good to try those options. And I think Causey made a really strong case for why he's a really solid option.
And then finally, I think Christian Moore settling at the leadoff spot is actually a blessing in disguise. Like, I understand you want to have him to be able to knock some guys in, but he's batting, 420, something around there right now. I mean, Christian Moore is just your most versatile hitter and probably your safest, OBP guy of anyone in the lineup. It's something we didn't have before the year, as Christian Moore being the most likely long-term option at leadoff this year. But I think that works. I think the lineup we saw yesterday is probably some variation of the best lineup that Tennessee can trot out on any given day. But I just look at that and I think that's solid. If he settles in there and he's your one, I think you feel really good about that, and you just kind of want Christian Moore to get the most amount of bats of anybody. I think in one sense, just because I think he's your most talented, maybe as a whole, just the most important fixture in the lineup, and you want him to get as many at bats as possible. And when you're in the leadoff spot, he's just going to get a bunch of opportunities, right?
Definitely, and that's kind of why I liked him at the 2-hole to start the season. But
Yeah.
at least the top of the lineup, Tennessee wants to do the righty lefty,
Mhm.
and there's just not a left-handed option that makes a whole lot of sense in that leadoff spot. And I think you feel a lot better too because Kavares Tears has lived up to the expectations and the buzz that he was going to have a breakout season, and you feel really good about him in the cleanup spot. And you still can have Billy Amick and Kavares Tears and some version of Robin Villanueva or Cannon Peebles right in the middle of the lineup, and this offense is just deep enough that you can take out one of your best hitters that you wanted in the middle of the lineup and move them into the leadoff spot, and you can kind of be fine there. You still have plenty of power in the middle of the lineup. You still have plenty of dudes that you trust to drive in guys when dudes get on base. And yeah, it feels like he's settled in there. I mean, for as much tinkering as Tony has done this season to date, obviously we're not that far into it, with the lineup, all weekend 1 through 4 was the exact same. I think they're starting to settle in, at least at those spots of what they want that to look like.
Ethan Stone, what can you give?
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.